Hello there. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending today. We are going to get started. We're going to do a quick little mic check and video check. If you can see my screen and you can hear my voice, just type yes in the little chat bar to the right. All right, great. Getting yeses all across the board. Fantastic. So I appreciate everybody attending today. My name is Ronald, and I'll be your webinar host for today. Before we get into everything, I have some pretty standard reminders to share. First, yes, you will receive a link to the recording of this webinar after we're done. So if you have to step away for a minute or leave early, don't worry. You'll get to listen to the recording later. And if the internet goes haywire during this hour with the hundreds of millions of people working from home, don't worry. You will still get a recording. Also, don't forget about this chat bar on the right-hand side. Feel free to submit any questions you have throughout the presentation, and I'll circle around at the end to answer them. The goal for our presentation today is to present some online fundraising and other tips to help you raise more money during this crisis. Before we jump into all that, first off, I just want to say thank you. I know many of you are working long hours from home, balancing the professional and personal to further the missions of your nonprofits. Thank you so much for what you're doing for your charity, what you're doing for all of us, and thank you for taking the time to sit in on this webinar. I know what it means right now to block out an hour of your day, so I appreciate it very, very much. Next up, here's the obligatory About Me slide so that you'll know who you're listening to today. My name is Ronald Pruitt. I'm the president and founder of For a Good Cause. I've been helping nonprofits build websites and raise money online for 22 years now. My company, For a Good Cause, is an effective and easy-to-use online fundraising platform for small to mid-sized nonprofits. And you can check us out at foragoodcause.com. I hope you do. I also want to give a shout out to the sponsor of this webinar, the Community Foundation for Northeast Georgia. The Community Foundation is partnering with myself on this webinar as part of their educational programming to support the nonprofit community. The foundation is also a client of ours. You can check out the great work they are doing and give to their COVID-19 relief fund by visiting them at cfneg.org. Thanks again so much for them for putting this together today. Here's what we're going to be up to. We're going to work our way through some tips for online fundraising during a crisis. At the end, we'll open everything up for Q&A. Don't be shy. I'm happy to go back through any of the slides you saw and talk more about the topics that you're interested in. And after the presentation, this will probably be tomorrow. I should be able to get this out tomorrow. I'm going to follow up with an email to send you some links that will allow you to further your knowledge on the topics that we're talking about today. Included in that will be a ton of COVID-19 email examples that I think you'll get a lot of use out of. Ready? Let's get into it. Let's start by talking about where we find ourselves. Let's set the stage for why online fundraising is your best friend right now. There's no doubt this crisis is affecting everybody across the world. Nonprofits are no exceptions. In fact, there's a recent survey that was done by the Nonprofit Times, and they found that of the respondents, of the nonprofit respondents, 97% said that they are being impacted in some negative way. 70% of those that responded said that they expect to raise less money going forward. You're seeing a huge impact on your fundraising methods right now. You've certainly probably had to cancel or postpone an event. Many nonprofits like museums and other similar organizations have lost on-site ticket revenue. It's certainly hard right now to send out any direct mail appeals as printers have closed, and you certainly can't pull volunteers together in a room to stuff envelopes. can't have those in-person meetings with major donors or pull a group together to man phone lines. Even if checks are rolling into your office, who knows if anybody is there to get them. So what's left for your organization? It's digital. You got to embrace digital methods right now of reaching your donors. That's Zoom calls, video, email, social media, texting. All these methods you want to use to drive donors to give online. Now, let's back up for just a second, because one of the biggest questions that I'm getting right now is whether you should be fundraising at all. 6.6 million people lost their jobs last week. You might be thinking, is my charity important right now? My general answer is yes. If you still have a need for funds, then the answer is a resounding yes. You need money to continue your operations, to serve your community, etc., then the answer is yes. Do not cancel your fundraising right now. At least put it to the donor as to whether you are deserving of a gift. Put it out to them. I think you'll be surprised. Most people are looking for action right now. They're looking for something that they can do to help. This has happened in all recent crises, from 9/11 to the Great Recession. Folks have stepped up and given during times of crisis. Will you get some complaints? Maybe, probably. You may get a few. Don't focus on those. Focus on the donors that are giving to you. Don't retreat right now. Nonprofits that retreat are going to find it hard to survive now in the next couple of months, and they're going to find it hard to survive 6 months from now, when we are kind of in the real heat of the economic downturn. And if you've gone out of sight from your donors, that's when it's going to hit even harder for you. So should you fundraise right now? Absolutely. And that's what we're going to talk about during this presentation, is how to do that online. So before we kind of get into that fundraising plan, not everything that you're doing now is going to be about fundraising. So let's talk about some different types of communications that you should be doing. First up, phone calls. One of the best things that you can do right now is get on the phone with some of your biggest supporters, your major donors, and just give them a personal phone call. How are you doing? I'm just calling to check on you. Your donors are isolated, fearful, they're worried just like everybody else. Perhaps some of your major donors are elderly, part of a vulnerable population. What a powerful thing it is if someone just calls you to check and see if you're okay. That you hope that they're well. You hope that their family is well, and that you appreciate their past support. You are letting them know they're part of your family and that you're all in this together. I don't think there's really any need to make a donation ask as part of this phone call, but they may ask how your organization is doing. If they do, let them know. Be very transparent about it with them. If they offer to help, accept that help graciously. Let them know what they can do. Go online and make a gift to you. Care and concern is the first things that you need to be doing on email and social media as well. So the same kind of check-ins, how you're doing, how's your family doing? That's the first type of messages that you need to be sending out right now. Then you can pivot to how the crisis is impacting your organization, those you work for, those you serve. You're going to want to let donors know, how the crisis is affecting you, that you're still here for them, you're still working for your mission and why you guys are as important as ever. You probably have to communicate about event cancellations and postponements. You want to weave into all these communications, you want to weave in impact stories, reminding them of the work that you're doing on the ground, why you guys are important. I've seen some nonprofits that are just communicating local, COVID-19 resources. We work with, kind of mostly small to mid-sized nonprofits, so I get a lot of, things from kind of the local nonprofit. Here's what we're doing in the community. Here's how you can get help if you're struggling. Keep them educated throughout this on ways that they can stay safe, things that you're doing. You basically just want to stay in the forefront of your supporters' minds. Let them know you're still here. Let them know you're working. If you're working virtual, tell them about it. And yes, as part of all the communications that you're going to be doing, you will be asking for money. We'll be talking about that specifically. First, let's look at some examples of communications. So one of the things that I want to do for you today is go through some communications. I'm going to be kind of diving into some things that I've saved here in my Google Drive. This is one of the resources that you guys are going to get. I'm basically going to just send you to all these emails and things that I've saved so you can look at what other nonprofits are doing. Let's start out with an example from a nonprofit near me here. I'm in Atlanta. This is an Atlanta nonprofit, Kate's Club. They work with families that have lost loved ones, and they are communicating out to their families that they work with and their volunteers about what they're doing during the crisis. Basically, they're going virtual with their programming, their support groups, their therapeutic activities. They're going to go virtual with that, and they're letting you know that. They've also built a COVID-19 resources page for all their families to understand, grief considerations during the crisis. I absolutely love this. Again, it's not all about fundraising. You're kind of letting them know what you're doing during this crisis. Another good example, this is a Girl Scout Council in Dallas, and they're sending out a message from the director here that they're going virtual, that they're going to move their programs into a virtual state. Over the computer, the girls will still be served. The troops will still get services. And they're also, what I love here is they're reminding you how important they are, how critical it is for our girls to develop resilience for times like these. And they're thanking folks for their continued support. There's no fundraising ask in this. This is just a first great communication about how they're responding to the crisis. I mentioned the care and concern. This is a good example here. This is a group, Birds Caribbean, that does conservation work in the Caribbean. They have a lot about kind of how the Caribbean's being affected and things that they're doing and a cancellation of an event. But they come to the end here to basically say, and I hope that you are okay. I hope that you stay safe and healthy. And thank you for being there to support us in the past. Here's a school foundation. They're basically communicating what they are doing in conjunction with the school district. Things like they made 3D printer parts available to the local university so that they can print mask and ventilator parts, that the school nurses are gathering supplies and delivering those to local health facilities. So an organization that's not on the front lines, so to speak, but they are contributing, and here's what they're doing. Here's an example from another school. It's a private school in Boston Trinity Academy, and this is a simple invitation to worship with them. So in the past, you would come weekly to their chapel on campus. Can't do that now, so they're setting up a Zoom call for you to worship with them virtually. Again, no fundraising ask here, just communications and how they're working together. A university in Chicago, they've built a dedicated coronavirus webpage for the students and parents and faculty and staff. They're letting you know about that, and they're also letting you know that they've had to cancel the spring commencement. And sometimes it's just good to just stay in the forefront of the mind of your supporters, do something fun and interesting. This is Hawaiian Mission Houses. They are a museum in Hawaii, and they're basically sending out emails this day in history and pulling from the resources that they have inside their museum. Something fun. I'm actually really enjoying these emails, as well as this one from the Lansu Chinese Garden. It's a very calm place that you can visit out in Portland. And they're sending these little videos of the calm that's in their garden, basically just reminding you that they're still here. They're going to be here when the crisis ends, and we want you to come back and visit us. It also is a kind of a care and concern thing. We hope that your family is well. And here's a video to help keep you calm. Again, get creative, stay in the mind of folks that support you. You can do this like stuff on social media, just messages of support. Again, something fun. Here's the Getty Museum. They're saying, hey, why don't you try to recreate the art that you find? Recreate our art in your house. This fun little challenges like that you want to do virtually, or you're offering help. Here is a Facebook posting from a domestic violence organization that's offering up their hotline. With everybody quarantined, this is going to be an issue. Just noticing something on here. Someone's saying no sound. I think sound is coming through for most everybody. I would close and rejoin and see if you can get that sound to work. If anybody else is having trouble, okay, we got some other folks said they're hearing. Okay, great. Stay in the forefront of the mind. Communicate what you guys are working on. That's exactly what you need to be doing with your communications right now. I mentioned I'm going to be sending you a lot of resources. Hopefully I'll be sending out an email tomorrow. One of the things I'm going to send you to on this particular topic is a webinar from one of my favorite people, Julia Campbell, really the top kind of social media expert for nonprofits. And she's going to deliver you a ton of examples and things that you can be doing on social media, email, online to be communicating with your supporters right now. Let's move into the fundraising here. One of the big questions right now is, what in the world do I do with my event that I was planning to hold in the next few weeks or months? You've got to make a decision about whether you are going to cancel, postpone, or go virtual in some fashion, basically trying to fundraise online in some way. I'd say really for any event that you scheduled now or through the summer, I would recommend planning on not having that in person. We have no idea when the guidelines will be changed, and we really have no idea when donors are going to feel comfortable gathering in large crowds. This is certainly a tough decision. If you don't have to make a decision now, that's perfectly fine. If you can put that off, that's fine. If you feel like, okay, we've got to tackle this now, you've got to kind of work through these different options for you here. So if your event was one of your biggest money makers and you need that money now, I would suggest going virtual or at least pivoting to an online fundraising campaign. Some money now is better than no money. If you don't need that money now and you can identify a good date later that works for you, works for your participants, works for your vendors, works for your sponsors, and you've got enough lead time to sell your registration, then a postponement might work for you. that lead time is important too. If you're scheduling something for August, September, when do you really need to start selling that, or going out and getting vendors and sponsors, and how is that going to work in this timeline? If it's hard to identify a later date, you know, you might simply cancel, launch an online fundraiser that lets donors contribute to what you hope to accomplish with your event. If you had already started selling access to your event and you need to cancel now, be sure to ask donors to turn their ticket purchase into a donation, to forego a refund. Should you offer a refund? Probably, but your first option to offer is to ask them to just turn that into a donation. I think you'll find many donors will be happy to do that if you're communicating the why. Why were you having an event? Where was the money going to impact? All those things that are going to help, that would help convince someone to make a donation. If you're doing that, I think they'll be happy to turn that into a donation for you. There certainly are many nonprofits that are going virtual with events right now. What this basically means for you is that you're going to interact online in some fashion with those that might have attended your event in person. This can take so many forms. I encourage you, if you're going to think about going virtual, to get as creative as you possibly can be. It can be something as simple as a virtual telethon that you're holding via Facebook live stream or a Zoom call. You might have a Zoom call during a virtual happy hour, or you're doing like it doesn't have to be something that's live. You could do a recorded virtual tour of your office, a virtual tour of the work that you do. At some point in the recorded video appeal, you could ask for donations. And anything that you're doing with this at some point in this online interaction, you're going to ask participants to go to your website or a special URL to give to you online. You might offer a texting option there to pull them into your donation page as well. Perhaps if you were having an event that was going to have a fundraising component to it, you might ask your virtual participants to still set up fundraising pages on your behalf, go out and fundraise you as part of a virtual kind of peer-to-peer fundraising, have a virtual dinner. There's so many, again, just get creative. I've seen a lot of things out there that you can learn from. If you can't think of a way to go virtual, maybe your event just doesn't work in a virtual way, which I think if you think creatively, you probably still can do something, even if it's just, hey, everybody, let's come online and watch a webinar about, get educated on what we were going to talk about during our event. If you can't find something, you can pivot to a simple direct appeal via email. And that's what I'm going to talk about in our next section. Before I do that, let's look at some examples of some virtual events, things that I've been sent. One of the most common things that I've seen right now is the virtual 5K. If you're going to have some sort of run or walk or something like that, that's something I think that can be done in a virtual way. This example, this is a group, another Atlanta organization, Wellroot Family Services, and on April 4th, they were looking to have a virtual, they were looking to have a 5K. So they turned that into the Stay Away 5K, a virtual 5K. And basically how it worked is that you would run in your neighborhood or anywhere, as long as you were socially distancing. You would upload your time and a map of your 5K run up to social media. They're going to pick a winner. They picked a winner. You come on to Facebook at a particular time and they'll announce the winner and make a big to-do of that, probably ask for a donation at that time as well. And you still register. You still pay a registration fee as part of this. I just got an update a couple of days ago. They raised $12,000 as part of this virtual 5K. They probably would have done more money if they were in person, but again, some money is better than no money now. Here's another virtual 5K. It's a group, Southwest Christian Care, another Atlanta-based organization. And if you notice here on their little flyer here, they're going to mail you a t-shirt. So some of the benefits that you would have gotten by being in person, you still are going to get in the virtual world. You still can, at some point when things open up, deliver those type of benefits to organizations that you're working with. Here is a Humane Society in Memphis. They're having a virtual art contest. Paint your pooch, upload that art. And they have a fundraising component that goes with this for picking your winner. This may be a time when you just want to do virtual events that are updating your community on the crisis, how you're handling it, resources that they can take advantage of. This is one example here, Root and Rebound. They're a reentry from prison organization. They're having a Q&A session, virtual Q&A session with their supporters and folks that they are, servicing in this time to make sure that they have all the resources that they need. Certainly, that's something that you can be doing as virtual events. Here's a group, Across the Nations. They do a lot of in-person events where they have fundraising components with that. They're now putting out a call for virtual fundraisers so that they can do some peer-to-peer fundraising with their community. So they're putting out a call for that right now and letting folks know that they need to sustain themselves, be here when the crisis passes. Another example, a Special Olympics Utah is having a virtual bowling tournament. So you basically are going to bowl on your Wii at home. If you don't have Wii bowling, they want you to just join in and cheer on others that are playing. A virtual disco event. Tune in on YouTube Live and they're going to feed groovy tunes into your house. Things that you might have done in a in-person way, like shaving your head for the St. Baldrick's Foundation. You now do that in a virtual way and then upload video, that type of thing, to show what you've been doing. And then there are times that with this that you just simply need to cancel and you need to pivot to an online fundraiser. This organization, Cocoon House, every year they have their butterfly celebration and luncheon where they honor and tell the stories of folks that they have served in their community. They weren't able to have that this year, but they are in this email. They're sharing a video that you can basically see some of that content. And they're letting you know that they still need to raise that $100,000, and they're linking you into a way that you can give. Sometimes that's what you're going to have to do when it comes to your events, is pivoting to a different type of appeal. To follow on this topic about postponing and canceling events, I'm going to send you another webinar from another nonprofit expert that I love, AJ Steinberg. She's going to kind of walk you through those decisions of how do you talk to vendors, how do you pick a new date, all of that type of thing. This is very useful for you. I also just learned that the Community Foundation for Northeast Georgia, the sponsor of this webinar, is going to be having another webinar next week where they're going to be talking about putting on a virtual gala. That's going to be amazing. I'm going to sit in on that one as well. So again, we're going to send you a ton of resources, hopefully tomorrow. Okay, if you don't have an event, or even if you do, most nonprofits need to do some sort of simple, direct email appeal for help right now, and let's talk about that. Let's go through some of the decisions that you need to make before you launch this appeal. These decisions you need to make really quickly There's no time to lose here in the crisis, especially if your nonprofit is hurting really bad. So you need to look at, how is the crisis impacting your organization and the community you serve? What funds do you need now? How will you put those funds to work? Are you going to raise money for a particular project? Are you all going to be unrestricted? How much do you need to raise? Are you going to target all your potential donors, or are you trying to reach a subset of them? To work through these decisions quickly. Just an example of a decision, Cobb County Schools here in Georgia. So the local school district here has gone virtual, like all of the school systems out there. They quickly identified 1,000 students that had no device at home. So those students cannot participate in the virtual learning. So they decided to launch an online campaign targeted at raising $250,000 to acquire the devices they needed to serve these families. So how much did they need to raise? $250K. How are they going to use the funds? Buy the devices and deliver those devices to the families in need. And they're going to launch that campaign online, and then through email and social media, they're going to support that campaign. And I've been kind of monitoring what they're doing, and thankfully they are closing in on their goal. Overall, speed is key to making these decisions right now. Once you have the decision in place, then it's time to make your case to the donor. Once you know how much you need to raise, how you'll put the funds to work, you're going to communicate that to your donors. You're going to decide the theme of your campaign, the story you're going to tell to convince donors to give, your pitch, your fundraising appeal. This is typically the story of how a donation will impact the organization and the people, community, and mission you serve. The best way to craft this pitch is to tell a compelling and emotional story of one person, one thing, or one place. As an example, if you were a homeless shelter, you could craft a story of how a donation of X dollars will help us get one person, maybe put a name to that person, off the streets and get the medical attention they need during this crisis. Quickly start writing and gathering the content you need to make this pitch. That's images, stories, testimonials, so you can deploy this theme to your website, social media, and emails, all the places you're going to push people into giving online. If you were already planning a fundraising appeal during this time, great, go with it. Maybe modify it a little bit to kind of make sure that the narrative that you're pushing works within this time of crisis, matches how you want to fundraise during this crisis, how you're going to raise the money, and what you're going to put it to work for. So speaking of how we're going to kind of make our message fit the crisis, you may be finding yourselves in one of two categories. We either can really see ourselves impacted by this in the community we serve, or maybe we're struggling and having a hard time figuring out if we are, if our community is impacted. So let's look at that first category. This is really those frontline nonprofits. These are nonprofits that are helping those that are impacted by the virus. This might be a clinic, a hospital, a food bank, a child welfare group, homeless support, things of that nature. Those are obvious. Those are fairly obvious. I want you to really think hard about how this crisis relates to your organization. You might find that it relates more than you think. You don't have to be a hospital. If you are anybody in any type of human service, then yes, you count here. Every human is being impacted by this in some way. Even if you're not in human service, there are ways that you can relate. What if you are an animal shelter? You're not saving humans, but your office it needs to close. You need adoptions now, and you need the funds to make those happen. Maybe you're not a hospital, but maybe you advocate against domestic violence, for example. With everyone quarantined, that's a big deal right now, and you need to put out the resources for that. You need to fundraise to make sure that you can continue your work, which is so important right now. Once you can find that connection, you're going to make a general pitch like this one. The community we serve is impacted by the coronavirus. Please help them with an online donation today. Not help you, but help them. If you can put a money value to that, a donation of X will help our community in this way. That's even better. But your general pitch is that our community's been hurt. We need you to give to support them. And really think long and hard about how you can make a connection to this particular crisis that we're in. I think you'll find that you can. Now, for those that just feel like that they can't, they're finding it hard. They're finding that it's not logical for them. That does not mean that your organization has not been affected. Everybody has been affected by this. It doesn't mean that you're not important right now. You still are. It doesn't mean that you can't fundraise. You still can. You can tell donors that you've had to lay off workers, you've lost an event, you've lost ticket revenue, or you expect a huge drop in income now and in the future. In those cases, you need to emphasize how vital your work is and that you need to be here when the crisis is over. Normally in normal times of fundraising, you don't do a lot of, we just flat out are hurting. We don't have the money to continue the work. We don't have the money to keep our workers. We need your help. Normally, that's not a pitch. Normally, you're going to pitch with, if you give us X dollars, these are the good works that we can do with that. And this is the impact that your donation is having. And I still think even in this case, even for these nonprofits, they're suffering that way. You could still pitch that way. But if you need to tell your donor that you're hurting and you're just flat out, are in crisis mode yourself, tell them. This is a time where they are going to step up for that. If you feel like, maybe you're in this category, your general pitch is, help us continue our vital work. Our work is more important than ever. Help us be here for the community once this crisis passes. And then talk about why your work is vital, why it's more important than ever. Why should you be here when the crisis is over? Let's jump back to those examples. All right, here we go. The first example I want to show, this is from a frontline nonprofit. This is a visiting nurse and hospice organization, and they are telling you some of the work that they're doing. They're going to the telehealth, telling you some of the needs that they have. They need the PPE, like so many first responders need now, and they got a big, bright, please donate button here to lead you into making your gift. Simple, straightforward pitch for the fundraising here. Another of these frontline nonprofits, the Vermont Food Bank. I love this. They're actually giving you quotes from the volunteers, the folks on the front lines here, as to how they're working, what they're doing. So you get a sense of the need here straight from them, and then they give you an opportunity to donate. Organizations that maybe are not on the front lines, but they are serving their community. Here's a university in Texas, and they've started a relief fund for students that are going to have trouble during this time. You see here, they're giving some statistics, if 10,000 people came. I would probably pivot away from this just a little bit, and I would basically tell the story of a single student and what they're going through, and then how a donation of X dollars will help that person and someone just like them. I mentioned that the Cobb County Schools example, this is their email that they sent out. I think this is good just to kind of show the simplicity that you can go with here. You don't need anything complicated. You're sending out simple letter and a donate button. It's nothing complex about that. I don't think you have to be fancy here. They're supporting themselves also on social media. They're having testimonials and other things out there to say, other folks, celebrities and other folks saying, hey, this is a great cause. You need to give to it. Anything you're doing on social media is just there to support the fundraising appeals that you have going out. You're going to send a series of emails. It's not just one email that you're sending out. I think you should be updating weekly on the things that you're doing and your fundraising. This is an email from the Community Foundation. That's our host today. They're letting you know what they've raised so far, what they're doing on the ground, and that the need is still great. And for organizations that feel like, wow, we're not sure that we connect, here's an example here, the Lansu Chinese Garden. I showed one of their emails before. They are letting you know that they're flat out hurting, that they've had to close their doors, and that they need to be here for everyone when the crisis is over, and they're linking you into a way to make your donation or renew your membership. Anything you do, simple pitch using the guidelines that I've had. I'm going to be sending you a resource from another nonprofit expert that I love. He's Stephen Screen. He's got a wonderful little 8-step process for you to write the email appeals that you're going to be sending out. I absolutely love this, and I recommend it, and I'm going to get that out to you. Now, you're going to have to push the donor somewhere to some type of online campaign. So they click in this email, they've got to go somewhere. Let's go over some examples of where you're going to send them, what types of online campaigns that you can do. First up, a donation page. This is the simplest thing you can do. Drive donors into a page where they can directly make their gift. This is the type of campaign I'd recommend for most small nonprofits, as it's the easiest to execute and understand. This is what I would recommend if you really cannot come up with a defined goal of exactly what you need to raise. Just put the donor directly into making a donation. This is linked from all over your website, but don't push the donor directly into making a gift from there. Just link them directly to the donation page from emails and other communications that you're sending out. Make sure that your donation page presents the theme of your crisis campaign, has the branding of your organization, has no distracting links, and is simple and easy to use. I'm going to send you a resource from us, a donation page checklist, so that you can see whether your donation page is user-friendly. Another type of campaign that's available to you is a crowdfunding campaign. So instead of sending the donor directly to the donation page to make your gift, you'll push them to a landing page that shows how the crowd is supporting your cause. You're going to demonstrate the crowd by including elements such as a giving thermometer, a list of donations being made, allowing comments to be posted on the page. These social elements are going to entice donors to give since they see others in the crowd giving. These pages are great for campaigns where you have a defined dollar goal. Go back to my Cobb Schools example. They needed to raise $250K. That's a great type of campaign. You know exactly what you need to raise. Put that on there, put that giving thermometer on there. This is a good page for that type of campaign. Another type of campaign that you can run is a peer-to-peer fundraising. Sometimes you just need a little help from those around you to fundraise. So where you're asking your supporters to create pages on your behalf that they share with their friends and family. Those friends and family give to that page. That supports the bigger campaign. Can be very beneficial for you. And when friends are asked by friends to give, they're twice as likely to give. Who can be fundraisers for you? This could be really anybody that supports you, board members, volunteers, event participants, donors. This can be a little bit of a tough campaign to pull off in crisis time. to pull off quickly unless you've got a group of fundraisers that's really ready to go. Maybe the board members are all on board. They're ready to jump in and create pages for you. Maybe you had an event already lined up, runners, walkers, something like that, that are ready to set up pages for you. That can be a group that you can turn to in this type of time. For this type of campaign to work well, you need to give your fundraisers a lot of support, scripts, suggested language. How can they talk to friends to convince them to give? How can they draw their friends and family into their pages to give? All right, we're going to jump back into our examples now. And again, you're going to get all these examples. Let's jump into some donation pages here. This one I really love. This is the Foothills Animal Shelter in Colorado. And remember I talked about, telling the story of one thing, one person, one place. They're telling the story of Scooter. So this kind of follows on from emails they're sending out that tell the story of Scooter. They're talking about that they've lost revenue from things, no adoptions, no events. They need to be here when the crisis is over. They need to help animals like Scooter for better days ahead. They're pushing people directly into making a gift here on the donation page. Many organizations are creating relief funds. If you do, I like this page where they're putting that front and center. You know exactly what you're giving to. This organization is raising money for adults and those in their community that have been impacted by job loss. Okay. Oops. Big frontline organizations are pushing folks directly into donation pages. This is the Salvation Army. You see their headline here, help those impacted by COVID-19. Again, it's helping the folks that they're helping, not helping the organization. A crowdfunding example, this is a hunger relief organization, Feed the Carolinas, and they had a sponsor, investor's title, that said, I think we can raise $25,000 for you. So they built a page just for them with the giving thermometer that says $25,000 on it. And they have all the social elements here of list of the donations. The donors are making comments of support. This is a great example of a crowdfunding page. A peer-to-peer fundraising example. Here is a food organization in Raleigh. They found that their peer-to-peer supporters were other organizations in the community, like churches and the Performing Arts Center and the local TV station. They reached out to those organizations and said, can you create pages for us? Go out and share this fundraiser with your networks. Get them to come to your pages and give. This has been very successful for the food shuttle. I think they're up to close to 300K raised in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Again, donors will give. So just some simple examples there of donation page campaigns. I've got some bonus tips for you when it comes to your online campaigns. Number one, you're going to get a lot of traffic to your website now. You can put a pop-up there that draws attention to the impact of the crisis on you and ask for a donation. A couple of examples here. Communities in Schools Houston lets you know that their campus is closed, but they are not, and they ask you to donate. The Bronx Zoo has a similar message of being closed, but you can still show up with your donation. Similar to how you might do this in the last 3 days of the year, this is urgent fundraising as well. Bonus tip number 2 is go out and find a matching donor. One of the best ways to generate online gifts is to incentivize donors with the possibility that their gifts will be matched by a major donor or other sponsor. You can increase the likelihood of an online gift by 22%. So find someone that really loves you. Do something like ask them if they would give $10,000 to match. If you were able to raise $10,000 online, would they match that? This can be a great way to get some additional dollars during crisis time. If donors know and they see that on the screen that, oh, my donation is going to be matched, it's going to be doubled, they're more inclined to make a gift for you. I want to just briefly mention a important date that's coming up that's going to be important in your crisis fundraising. As many of you know, the first Tuesday after Thanksgiving is Giving Tuesday. So since we are in this crisis, the Giving Tuesday Foundation has announced a coronavirus targeted giving day called Giving Tuesday Now. That's going to be on May 5th. This is the perfect day to send out an appeal. This is a day that everyone will be looking to support their favorite causes. You don't want to wait until May to fundraise, but this is a perfect day to communicate with donors to let them know sort of where you are in May, how you're still being affected by the crisis, what impact have you had with donations in April. Here's what you've done so far, but we still need your help. This is also a great day for a virtual event, even if it's just to have your donors come online with you for maybe just a thank you party from the donations that you got in April. Use all the techniques that I've outlined so far to conduct a campaign around Giving Tuesday. I'd do something leading up to Giving Tuesday, a series of emails talking about what you're going to do on Giving Tuesday on that day. Do your fundraising appeals, maybe fundraise toward a goal on that day, and follow up, giving donors an opportunity to fundraise after the fact. So those are some of my short-term recommendations. I know we don't have a ton of time left here today. I hope that you'll stick on with me here. I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that I want you to be thinking about as we someday hopefully go back to normal or a new normal. First up, I want you to double down on your donor retention. It's always easier to keep a donor than to find a new one. I also hope that you will double down on your digital methods of donor retention. You're going to pick up some online donors during this crisis, folks that are new to you. You want to meet them where they are with these digital methods to keep them coming back and giving. What does an online donor want? They want the same thing from you that all donors want, to know that their support is appreciated, that they are thanked in a heartfelt way, and to know that the money that they gave you made a difference. So, social media, video, and email, the things you see here, these are the types of messages that you need to be sending out. The number one thing here is stories of impact. There's a reason that is in red. You need to constantly be reinforcing how their donation made a difference, and you're going to tell that with personal stories of the impact. For the email stuff, you need to be sending out that at least monthly when it comes to donor retention. If all you can do is a monthly newsletter when things get back to normal, that's fine. During the crisis, I want you to be communicating at least weekly. One little tip, one thing that I do with my subscribers on email, I send them an email whenever I have new content, a new blog posting, a video replay of a webinar like this one. I'd recommend you start a blog. That can be a place where you can house all these donor stories and event announcements, and then you can push people to this. Basically, just keep folks up to date on what you're doing with their money and how it's impacting you. And right now, you're learning a lot of new techniques with video, with Zoom, probably doing webinars yourself, giving behind the scenes videos. Use all that going forward. These donors are used to seeing that. I want you to continue to do that. Social media, the same sort of things, the same type of messages apply. Pick one or two platforms you think you can commit to. Don't overcommit yourself. You typically want to publish multiple times a week, once or twice a week on Facebook, once or twice a day on Twitter, for example. Just a couple of examples of communicating impact. Here's the Humane Society of New York. What's their impact? Dog adoptions. They've got a Pinterest board for that. You're going to be doing a lot of thank yous going forward. Here's a shout out on Facebook from Alex's Lemonade Stand to one of their fundraisers. We got a ton of resources on our blog about donor retention. I'll be sending you a lot about that. I also want you to diversify your fundraising. You don't want all your fundraising in one basket. So many small nonprofits raise the vast majority of the money they see from one big event every year. A good lesson from this crisis is that if you've seen events can be fragile, whether it be from COVID-19 or just a thunderstorm. So maybe do smaller, multiple events throughout the year. Try some virtual events going forward. Diversify who you get gifts from. Embrace everything that I've been talking about today. Digital fundraising, you'll find that you can attract more smaller donors to spread out the risk of losing that one big major donor. And embrace multi-channel, meaning that things that you may not think could attract online donors, use that. For example, put short URLs, text to give options in your direct mail so you can push people online. And when you push them online, I want you to be pushing them into a monthly giving option. Wouldn't it be great to have sustainable, predictable income right now? If your nonprofit does not have a monthly giving program, I encourage you to create one. It can mean predictable income for you. You'll find you raise more money. Your donors are going to love it, especially during this economic downturn. A small monthly gift is easier to budget for, and you can still upgrade them over time. They'll love the relationship that you're building with them as you educate them monthly on the impact that you're having. Another resource that I'm sending you a webinar from the top nonprofit recurring giving expert, Erica Wasdorp. I hope that you'll take advantage of that as well. And finally, just one extra bit of advice for you. Act quickly on the things that we've talked about today. Don't lose any time in this crisis. Don't give up. Don't worry about things being perfect. All the examples that I'm going to send you that I saved in my Google Drive are not perfect. Things you can learn from, but nothing is going to be perfect that you do right now. And I want to thank you again for what you're doing, your commitment to your mission and the community that you serve. What you're doing is absolutely amazing. Again, I'm going to send you some resources. Hopefully I'll get this out to you tomorrow. And if you can stick around just a few more minutes, I am going to try and look at some questions here that have been submitted. Let's see. Susan asks, how often should we be communicating? I think I mentioned that a little bit. I think during the crisis, you need to be communicating at least weekly via email. That's a combination of not just fundraising stuff, but also things just showing your impact and staying in touch with your supporters. Social media, you need to be doing that daily. Again, at least once, if you're on Facebook, at least once a day. If you're on other platforms, Instagram once a day, Twitter multiple times a day. This is a time to be doing more communicating than you would normally do. Another question here, if we are not a first responder type of nonprofit, how do we do the fundraising appeal? How do we say that we need funds? From Cindy here. So we went over a little bit of that. So we talked about that if you feel like that you cannot make that connection, if you are not connected in some way, I think probably you might be. If you really think about it, you might be connected in some way. But if you're not, you can talk about how you're hurting. Normally, I wouldn't say that's a great pitch, but you can do that now. You can pivot to say, our work is still vital. We're still continuing our work. We're going virtual. We're still doing what we need to do to further our mission. You can talk about that. Talk about why you are important as you are right now. Help us continue our vital work and let us be here when everything continues. Another question here, any samples for those of us working with underrepresented students in higher education? So let's go back to the communications here and look at, again, the one from Concordia, if I can find that here. So again, you're kind of that organization. If you're working in higher education, you've got, your students are certainly being affected. You can send out messages like these, basically say, what are the resources for our students now during the crisis? Then you can pivot to exactly talking about what the work that you're doing. We had the other organization that did, I can find it here, that did the I think I moved it accidentally, that are doing the emergency fund for their students. That's something that you can do. But it's basically just talking about your work, the work that you're doing, and letting them know that it's still vital. We do have one client that I'm thinking of that works with, or I talked to an organization yesterday that does work with kind of mentoring folks through the higher education process, from application all the way through to graduation. Well, we talked a little bit about how now they're going to be doing that mentoring virtually. And if seniors were there that maybe didn't get to graduate, they still have got to think about higher education. They're going to be doing some of their mentoring and consulting virtually now. You can talk about that. So I think that it's really just about talking about your work and making sure that you're letting people know that you're still vital. With everyone, another question, with everyone saying we are in need, what other messages break through? Don't forget that you're talking primarily to your supporters. So you're sending out emails to folks that have donated to you before. So hopefully you've been doing work with them to talk about the impact of the donations that they've made before. So this is something that you're going to lean on. You're going to lean on that. So again, in normal times, I wouldn't say we are in need. In normal times, I would say talk about the impact that donations are having and have had. So pivot to that. So if everyone says we're hurting, give, your message can be we're hurting and we need to be here when things come back to normal, or we're continuing our work. Here's why that work is important. You gave previously, your donation helped us get John off the streets and put into a shelter. Your donation previously helped, dogs get adopted. We're still doing that work. We need you. So pivot to talk about the impact. Those are the questions that were passed to me. I know we're kind of running over time here. If there's any question that I did not catch, or my assistant, which is my wife currently, we're all here at home working virtually now. If there's anything that I did not catch, I'm going to answer that personally. I'll send you an email. Thanks so much for spending time with me today. I hope you learned a few things. Let me go back to my contact information here. Don't hesitate to reach out to me personally with any questions that you have, something that I didn't get to. If you missed anything, I will be sending out a replay of this webinar in the next few days. Thank you so much for being patient with the tricky internet today. When the presentation closes, you will be redirected to a feedback survey. Let me know how I did today. Visit us at forgoodcause.com. Visit our blog. We've got a ton of stuff there. Look for my email in the next couple of days. And please, please, please stay well. I hope you and your family are doing okay.